Here we go. We are 1 minute early. Oh, no, it just hit 2. We were 15 seconds early. That's pretty good, Don.
Oh, absolutely. It shows we're getting better in every category every week. So now we're getting into punctuality, and knowledge. So this is going to be a super session that we're going to have today, and we're going to really focus on what's fundamental to LinkedIn success, which is getting the appointment. And me and Mike have a lot of background in doing that, especially having a lot of old school background, which really gives you context as to how simple and opportunistic LinkedIn can be compared to the old way of doing things, and how you really have an opportunity to gain control over what you're doing and who you're doing it with. So, Mike, why don't you share a little background on making appointments and get some tidbits these people can take away today?
Yeah. Well, just to reinforce what we're looking to accomplish on LinkTank is we're looking to provide you in 20 minutes with at least one actionable idea that you can use right away. Even some people are using it as we're on LinkTank. They get there with the screen open doing it, which is great. The reality is no one needs more information. So you need the right information. We're sharing with you what's working today because we're running a lot of clients. We're about next week. For the last 18 months, we're gonna cross 250 million views that we've produced with our clients. That's a $250 million. I love that movie. $250 million views, and so that in itself is great. So you're getting from us the stuff that's working today, right now, yesterday, and this morning. And then in addition to that, Don and I are focused on adding value because we just don't want to be flapping our gums up here. We have a lot of stories we love to talk. We want to give you something that you can do. And then, of course, it's your responsibility to take it and do it. So without you doing it, if we give you the greatest idea in the world, nothing's going to happen. With that being said, getting back to appointments, that's the magic. We're not really working with that many customers that are selling widgets. And I haven't really seen anyone be effective selling widgets on LinkedIn. I could be wrong, 800 some million people, but I haven't seen anyone selling, some type of low price commodity on LinkedIn. Have you seen it, Don?
No, and I think that's one of the keys is low price commodity. When you're selling high end product or equipment, you're in a different ballpark because the average ticket is so high. But what you are doing is selling to people who do sell widgets, right? So, you're really looking at building a community of users for what your service can benefit, and then have that kind of cycle through what they do on an everyday basis. And the key is I think everybody has to look at a return on investment, especially time investment, when you're looking at appointments, right? Because at the end of the day, like Mike says, knowing is good, but doing is everything, right? And knowing and not doing is as good as knowing and not doing. It's probably a little bit better than not knowing and doing, because then you're just going to embarrass yourself. But, the point of what we're trying to get through is it's a complicated puzzle that gets very simple as you apply effort to it, right? LinkedIn, if you look at it from above and you try to figure it out and you try to project, good luck. It's like counting the stars in the sky, right? But if you really look at it from your activity level, not the quality of activity level. The quality of activity level will go up with the activity level. But what it'll do is it'll teach you because of either rejection, which will guide you back into more relevancy, or to some level of success, and then you stay in that neighborhood as long as you can and you work it, right? And the other thing too is you got to ask yourself again with the return on investment factor, what are these appointments worth if you achieve them, right? I mean, just fast forward and say, hey, if I get together with this guy or gal and they love what I'm doing, and we can come to terms. That usually you measure things in the either average value of the customer or maybe an annual value. So let's just say it's 20 grand, right? And what it lends itself to is, what are you willing to invest now, knowing that there's a 20 grand prize at the end of the journey? And if you can calculate that in time or something, even Mike was funny yesterday. Someone at LinkedIn actually noticed one of his posts, and after he was enamored by the compliment, he said, maybe I should send her a bouquet of flowers. And that's a natural response. And most people say, well, it's online. Why don't we just send them an emoji with a cute picture? No, how many times have you gotten flowers this week? And how much does flowers cost? And if you put that in perspective, it was 20 grand. So you say, hey, I'm going to, if you just had a drip campaign that you send somebody something every 2 weeks for a month or two, I mean, that's going to make an impression. It's going to be more than if you didn't. So getting to the appointment, one last thing I want to add, and Mike's a genius at this, is, who's on your get list, right? What 5 people are in play, right? If you had a playlist, who are the 5 or 10 that you've been working with, trying to get going, and put them into some sort of strategy, either reaching out, giving them something, blah, blah, blah. But now at least if you hit, you should get the prize. And now if you get the prize, it will justify the investment in getting there. And all of a sudden now you're streamlined, walking down the right road and build to it. So Mike, why don't you add to that?
Yeah. Well, let's bring it down into more actionable stuff. Lifetime value customer. That's, you said, it's the gold at the pot of the end of the rainbow. So if it's 5,000 or 10,000, then you can invest 1,000 to 5,000. Most people aren't really looking at it that way. Or you can invest 5 hours to 10 hours. Usually a combination of that. If you're selling something, which is why I don't think I really see it on LinkedIn, that's $50 or $100, then if you spend a fair amount of time trying to get appointments to sell, then I feel like you won't get that ROI, because the time, energy, and effort is more than the lifetime value of the customer. So the default on something like that, and everyone's seen it online, is that you just automate an evergreen and offer. So the most evergreen offer is Amazon. It's just that stuff there. You go there, you buy it, and that's it. You're done. Then you have a lot of companies like the nutraceuticals and the health and beauty, huge email lists, and they're blasting out, and they blast it out. And you go to Shopify or some web store, and you buy. For me, those types of funnels are better for Instagram and Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, where it's just more blasting, and it's the sheer numbers game, because you're going through thousands or tens of thousands to half of 1% conversion will get you there on a automated basis with really little or no human interaction. That's one model. That model, I don't feel like that works on LinkedIn. Conversely, the model that does work on LinkedIn, and I think this is what the opportunity is on LinkedIn, is to collapse the time, the normal sales cycle. That's where I think it gets exciting. So if you're selling, say, a $100,000 software solution, or a corporate, some kind of training program that's 50 or 100 grand, or whatever it might be, and normally, without your LinkedIn magic, it's a 3 or 6 month sales cycle, because it's corporate. So you're waiting to meet these people, and then they have to have a budget, and then you're in. Now, the good news is once you're in, if you do a good job, you're probably in. So you have cross sells and upsells. The opportunity from an appointment standpoint on LinkedIn, which we're going to get to in a second, is to get the appointment. Well, the equal opportunity I think LinkedIn is to collapse the sales cycle from what normally, if it was say 6 months, I feel like you can, at least chop off 2 months. So the question there, and I'll ask you, Don, this question: when you're caught in a scenario where there's a long sales cycle, what are the things that you have to establish from your, as a salesperson's perspective, before you usually get the sale? So I pose that question to you.
Great question. One thing I just want to go back a little bit to what you said, and which might help people appreciate what you're saying and what we're talking about today, is really LinkedIn is a B2B platform, not a B2C, right? If I
Yeah.
had $50 widgets to sell, what I would do is reach out to purchasing agents at Walmart or Amazon and sell them 10,000, only dealing with 2 contacts, right? I wouldn't be selling the guys who go into Walmart. So that's one distinction. The other element that's so important to this discussion is really, appointments are always part of a relationship. To Mike's question now is on a long-term, let's say, sales journey with someone, right? How do you continue to bring more awareness, more value so that you are moving in that time towards a conclusion? Right? And that's really based on what's going on with them, what's going on with you. And one good thing, a benefit to a long journey, is you get a lot more information about what you're dealing with before you have to close. Right? So over time, people tell you things and they're really clues to what they're thinking and what they're willing to do if you can do them. So, if you're a long game player, what you have to do to justify the long game is continue to bring people into the cycle, right? If it's a 2-year cycle, you got to have people at the 23rd month as people are entering the first month. So you're not waiting 2 years from the time you meet to the time something happens, right? And then you challenge yourself. And really in every sales call is what's it going to take, right? I mean, that's the end. That's the question after you're done talking and everybody gets the stuff on the table is, okay, where are we? What's it going to take to make this happen? And maybe it's something that you can do right now. And maybe it's hey, great insight. Let me get back to you, see if I can work it out. And eventually it becomes an accommodation or a compromise. But more importantly, you're demonstrating how you do business, right? And how you do business with the people you're trying to do business with is a reflection of how you're going to do business with their product or with them, right?
Yeah.
And most of the time, it's one big thing about appointments, which we can get into another episode, is qualifying, right? So the people you're putting in the cycle, are the right people and can make the thing happen if you can rise to their expectation. So that's how I look at long term. And sometimes short term turns into long term, and long term turns into short term. I mean, things can move differently at different times based on what you got to offer.
Yeah. And I think visually, this is a Miro board, which is a really cool technology. But anyway, I just pulled this up. It's a template. But this template I like because it shows you, the path. And so to me, when I asked you that question, I always teach everyone that before anyone's going to make a purchase, they got to know, like, and trust you, and they have to believe in the service, and then they have to believe that they can do it. Because a lot of times people are like, "Oh, that's great product, and I can work," but we're never going to be able to deploy that. So if they don't believe that they can do it, then that's the the nail in the coffin right there. So when you look at the touch points, what you're building all of that. So you're making action. You're just Don sharing some wisdom, some knowledge. These touch points, as Don also said, are super important because the consistency in which you follow up and how you follow up, and are you doing what you said you're going to do, is part of the factor if they're going to work with you or not.
Mm-hmm.
If you said, the great call with, our flow chart in a couple of days, and a couple of days you don't do it, well, then if you're going to be selling $1 million solution, there's quite a bit of steps to deploy it. Are you building confidence, or are you destroying confidence? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like a movie about the movie. It's almost like in a long sales cycle. There's like there are detectives seeing if you're gonna make all these touch points, how easily you make them, or you're making them timely, or is your communication clear? So there's a lot of that stuff that goes on. And why I say LinkedIn can short in a sales cycle is that I think you can actually get rid of, a bunch of these things in here, because the know, like, and trust is developed by your input in LinkedIn. So in the sales cycle, they're getting to know, like, and trust you because you're teaching on LinkedIn, and they see your content and they see actually how you interact and the comments that you make. So they literally are getting, a big swath of know, like, and trust already through the channel. And then, of course, if you what we recommend on LinkedIn, which is adding value and teaching, they're getting to know your philosophy. And it's also good if you've got a product or a service to share, wins from clients, and, kind of the nuances of what you're doing. So you really have like a separate channel along with this linear sales channel that's working for you. And that's really, I believe, the magic that most people don't realize. It's like everyone's like, okay, LinkedIn, what am I going to get? Right? And Gary Vaynerchuk, it says, I love it. It's not what you get, it's what you give. But what you give, the more you get. So that's one thing, is understanding sort of your sales cycle. In terms of another thing that I think is super important, is that you should be working with software that's going to allow you to put your people into sales stages. Because if you look sales stages and you just go into, let me just look at images, and we'll just pick something here. Um, yeah, any of these things. I mean, there's such great content out now, but you really should be understanding, maybe that's hopefully big enough, where people are in the sales cycle. Right? Are they
Mm-hmm.
top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel? And, basically, you've got to keep them where they are. So that's the great about LinkedIn, is that you're a broadcast station. You're broadcasting everything. When people contact you, it's very easy to understand. They never heard it before. Like, I had a call this morning, right? And I have a lot of calls, and there was someone that was trying to sell me on booking appointments on LinkedIn. And literally the first like 2 minutes, they're trying to figure out, like, well, where am I in the process, and how did I find them? And I basically said, okay, what's your CEO? Oh, we're not connected on LinkedIn. Everything I did is on LinkedIn. Maybe I found you through the internet. I have no idea. So for that salesperson starting out at, basically zero, and, unfortunate for that salesperson, because really didn't even know what they did. They booked appointments. But had I been watching the woman that's who the company that's been 6 years or 8 years, and watching her LinkedIn, and knew her, and really watched what she did, what she talked about, that call would have been radically different. Now it
Mm-hmm.
turns out this is something funny, because they just do outbound on that. When I did go and look her up on LinkedIn, and I had the woman on her for a second, let me check this out. I went to her LinkedIn, and it was shit, because she's great at outbound. The last post was like in 45 days or something. Like, I would never do business with this organization. I went in to see some of the other sales people in the organization. No posts. So all they're using is LinkedIn as a tomahawk. It's basically
Mm-hmm.
cold calling on LinkedIn. So it's effective for them because they're selling their services, but they're missing a magic part of what this is all about, which is what we teach. So
Well,
I hope that gives you. some good things to think about. And um, Don, you segue in, which I have, and then I just want to end up with one last thing about how to book appointments, because I had a conversation today with a client that I think is very relevant to what we're talking about now as well.
Well, no, I think you really laid it out perfectly for everybody who's listening. And if a lot of this is brand new to everybody and it doesn't sink in like as fast as we say it, this is recorded, right? You can go back and play parts of it and get familiar with it. I think also because my background has been totally sales and typically in my own company. And my purchase orders were never less than 100 grand if they had my signature on them. And some went up to millions. Here's what I learned. It's not so much what you're buying, it's not what you're selling, it's what they're buying, right? And what you're selling may not be what they're buying, right? It's not the product or service, right? Some of it is you. The other part is everybody's in this for themselves. Everybody on LinkedIn, if you don't do something for them, they're not going to recognize you and they probably won't do something for you. Now, that's asked backwards, but that's the way it works. They should be out there giving and producing value and they'll be more attractive to it. What I always found is I always became an advocate for the person I was dealing with, right? And even if they were the CEO, I would always ask them, what about this means so much to you personally? Right? Because as CEO, first of all, you're better off talking to CEOs because they've been in your chair. Second thing, most of the time they want a better life. Most of them are making money. Most of them are doing sales. Their business is well, let's hope. But they want to know that you're not going to come in and disrupt a business. I had a partner that his only wish is I never embarrass him. I had to make a vow I would never put us in the newspaper. I mean, he kept such a low profile. He didn't want any exposure. And that was what made me a trusted advisor. So really, when you get down and say, okay, I know what you want to buy, I can handle it, but what about you? And here's the thing. If you make them bigger, better in front of whoever they are that they need to impress, you become more valuable than what you're selling, right? If you can get somebody a win, if you can come in and change things for the better, all of a sudden they got a foothold that they can take advantage of. And now they build a dependency that won't be price sensitive, right? If you sold a commodity to a commodity dealer, next time it's who's got the cheaper price. If you're there looking out for them, taking care of them, coming up with stuff that nobody else gets this fast, right? Because you always got stuff in your little toolbox. You can say, hey, if you do this, I'll tell you what I'm going to throw in. And you know what I always did that made me a success in front of even retail eyes? Every time I made a deal was after the sale. You know, if I closed a guy on an air compressor, got his money, at the end I would say, here's $10 worth of hose, right, to go with it. Be my guest. And he knew I didn't have to do it. And he also knew he couldn't use that to say, let's make a deal every time I come in. But because you're a great guy and you're going to take some of my cards, pass it out to other guys in the garage, hey, I want to do something special for you coming out here. And all of a sudden, when you start learning people's names, when you start learning their kids' names, right, and you share that, that's important. You know, I passed somebody who I just met last week and they said, hey, Don, as they passed me. I forgot their name. But for the whole day, I'm saying, well, wasn't that cool? They remembered who I was and they greeted me. It's those
Yeah.
little things done right. So, Mike, why don't you
Yeah.
get into appointments?
Well, two things. I love this show because you always spark some inspiration. So my wife is starting a wholesale cold press organic juice business with some of that's been doing it for a long time, but they're kind of building another division. And we're in North Miami. There's very expensive restaurants, hotels, and bars where they're making these fancy drinks that are 18 to 30 bucks.
Wow.
And the components, a lot of the time is juice. And so they've gone in and won a few pieces of business relatively easy. She brought up such a good conversation that when they went in, they are giving them a better product. A lot of times they're using stuff that's not cold pressed and actually fresh. even though it might have been manufactured within the week. And they're less expensive than the wholesaler out there that probably aren't forced to be competitive on pricing. So she said to me, it's what what happens if we end up winning, excuse me, a dozen or 2 dozen of these restaurants, and all of a sudden the big wholesaler was like, wait a second, my order is for, this is going down. And you speak to someone who's had a relationship for a couple of years, and they said, well, they came in, you're charging, $4 for a gallon of orange juice, and they're charging $3.50. So the only thing that they're going to do is, well, I'll give it to you for $3, because it's just price. So then I challenged her. I said, well, how do you add value?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get wrapped in a price. Well, obviously, organic and cold pressed, people want that. So that's something. But if that's the bar or restaurant's best kept secret, and they're not putting it on the menu, our new categories, wholesome and fresh, organic, fresh, cold pressed drinks at a premium, they're creating a new category. And so I said, well, if you can convey to the owner, because you have better ingredients now that you can actually brand better drink, then they can charge more. So not only are you giving them a better product at a competitive price, but you're how to make higher price sales and increase their margin. Like that's to me, that's genius, because now the person's like, all right, that's genius. They changed the menu. The commerce guy comes in or gal and says, hey, I want to give you a better price. They're like, well, it's not going to work because we're selling premium, organic, cold pressed at a premium with higher margins. So whether you go down 50 cents or $1 doesn't matter. You're creating you're creating through education, you're creating a value proposition that they might not have considered.
Well, strategically, it makes so much sense what you're saying, but here's where a small player wins over any big player. Big players can change prices in seconds and they don't care. There's enough money in the till that, if it's a quarter, 50 cents, they've got it. But what they have to do to stay big is scale. Everything has to be systematic. So when you go into a company, you say, what are they doing as far as service level, right? How many times are they coming in here? What are they showing you? They're not going to change that for one customer, right? They're not going to change their whole sales and training and all of a sudden because somebody in Florida decided to go pick off an account. But once you do that and you say, hey, I'm going to be here, and not just for the product, but for you and your customers, and pretty soon you come in with a little billboard that you can put on their counter saying, just remember this juice is made this way and this way, and put your face on it and become a Mrs. Fields, right? At that point, because you can do anything with service on your first customer, you got a blank slate. So that's the advantage you have, right? And on LinkedIn, it's the same thing. If you look at Mike's chart, there's a fear factor on LinkedIn, a risk factor, a risk of doing and a risk of not doing, right? Once you understand what their risk factors are and what their opportunity quotient is, then you say, okay, like a tailor, someone comes in with a big suit, doesn't fit, and you say, okay, give me 20 minutes. I'll measure you, I'll boom, boom, boom. You'll come out of here like a king, right? If someone can do that for people's LinkedIn and make them aware that it's not for free what they're doing, because they don't invest any money, doesn't mean they're not investing a huge amount of valuable time. And at the end of the day, here's the honest to God truth. Me and Mike have seen so many people come and so many people go. So many people think they could do it and they gave up, even though they were so proud and bold when they first started out on that thing. We're here with LinkTank and with LinkTank membership to save you from yourself if you're going down the wrong road. To at least grab a ride on a reading, right, for a month or two and say, Is this feel better? Is this better? Trust yourself to trust yourself. Don't trust us, right? You know who you are. You know how you feel. And if you're feeling like there, if you believe one thing, that LinkedIn offers one of the biggest opportunities anywhere based on who isn't doing stuff and then based on who isn't doing it well, right? That's where we are. So anyways, Mike, I know everybody wants to know how to make an appointment.
So yes, and I'll close my session with that and the big mistake I saw. But I also just want to say I just gave someone, well, it's over a couple payments, $6,400 today, and it's somebody that is going to help me get better at LinkedIn outbound, so I can actually build a team and scale for doing even more. So it goes back to the same thing that Don and I have been saying since we started working together over a year ago. Can I figure it out? Yeah, because we're great on LinkedIn, but I'm the one that's making the sales. I want to duplicate myself and get a few people. We do probably 75% of the stuff that we're doing is through content marketing on LinkedIn, and 25% outbound. He's doing 95% outbound, and he's built teams. He is actually in the business of helping organizations build outbound teams. So that goes from duplicatable processes and systems and hiring and training and methodologies that he spent the last 4 years on. So why would I spend that kind of money? Because I don't want to figure it out myself, take a shitload of time to figure it out, have to track all this shit myself, make all my mistakes, make my iterations to get to where I could be with him in 60 days would take me, probably 6 months. If I had the extra time to dedicate. There's no doubt I guess we're crushing it on LinkedIn, and I'm a systems guy, no doubt. But do I have that extra spare time, money, the time to afford to make versus $6,400? To me, when you can, you always pay for expert results and need. Mm-hmm. And so that's what Don's talking about with LinkTank, our program, is that look, we just launched it. We've got a few paying customers. It's literally we launched. The training starts next week, and we made a big decision to say, all right, is it going to be high price or low price? Why low price? Don and I went back and forth. Obviously, bigger margins, can sell less, high price, less people to deal with, also less of an impact. So we wanted to make a bigger impact because there's literally millions and millions of people that are great people that want to get LinkedIn. And as Don said earlier, you start, didn't work, that didn't work. I tried this from this guru, that guru. The gurus you're following aren't even doing it themselves. It's a shit show. LinkedIn, Facebook. If you're watching this right now, I know there's 95% that tried Facebook. Start, stop. Instagram now. Oh, TikTok. I got to do that. YouTube videos. Oh, I got to do some ads. Not at all. Right? You got to figure out what channel you want to bet on, and then you got to go deep. And the best way to go deep is to make an investment of people that are doing it so they can be helping you eliminate the mistakes. That's really the biggest thing, because that's how you collapse time. You follow something that's working and you iterate, because everyone's clients are different and market's different. There's no exact formula. But if you got the blueprint and then it's up to you to execute, this is what it's all about. This is why Don and I are so excited. So I wanted to share that because you brought that up, and it was just fresh because I just, sent the Stripe payment over. It'll be exciting because I'm going to be learning a ton. So that's what it's about. Like I'm going to be learning from an expert. So in terms of me putting a button on my part of this session, I was talking with a client, and the client is frustrated with their conversion, not on cold outreach to acceptance. They're doing great. They got basically, 20 they're doing every day, 50% from cold outreach are accepting, which is a huge number. It's huge. So then well, where's the frustration? He said, well, then I'm following up, but I'm really not getting that many appointments. So I said, okay, there's something that needs to be optimized, because if you're adding value, and it's that, and I always say this, the numbers, if you're getting 20% conversions cold outreach versus 50, the one that's doing 50 is only getting that because they identified their ideal customer better than you, their messaging is better than you, LinkedIn profile and what they're producing on LinkedIn, they're giving and sharing.
Mm-hmm.
They're desired in a network. Okay, so check, that person's kicking ass on that part. Well, what's the next part when someone accepts? Add more value, and then if you want to jump on to talk about it. So the next part, add more value, see if you want to jump. There's nuances in that. But then I said, well, how are you trying to book the appointment? He said, well, I'm telling them to go to this page with a video of me, and then there's a link that says book in my Calendly. I was like, you got to be me. I said, busy. Let's reverse this. You're a busy executive. You want thought leadership, learn. But then someone says, if you want to learn more, go here, click this, go on this page. And then if you want to speak to them to figure out how it works, click that link, then go to the calendar, then put your first name, email, mobile number, and what the meeting are, figure out a time that works, and then hit that button, and then hope it's going to show up on your calendar. Who's going to do that? Calendly and auto booking links are amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
They changed the way we did, but that doesn't mean that should be the only way you're trying to. Because here's what we know: some people hate them, some people love them. If they never have to go back and forth and speak to someone, 2 seconds, if can type fast, great. But some people, and if I want an appointment with you, you're old school. I do all the work.
Mm-hmm.
When you're available, they shoot back a few times. I find it. I say, awesome. I can do this time. And by the way, I got your email. I'll send you the booking link. It's automatically going to show up in your calendar. Done deal. All you need to do is show up. That's respect. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the real is that how do we know who wants one way or who wants the other? It's unknowable. So you do both. Novel idea. Say what? Listen, I'd love to follow up on the PDF I sent you and go over the framework. Would you rather, use this link to book? If not, totally get it. Just give me it 2 times. My assistant will book it for us, and we don't have to do a thing. Give them a choice.
Well, I think you hit it right on the nose. You have to come across as client value facing in everything you do, right? Even when I send my Calendly link, I always say pick a convenient time. I mean, they're going to pick a convenient time anyways, but when I say pick a convenient time, it's really saying I defer to you, right? Whatever's good for you, I'll make happen for me. The other aspect that's so important is there's been experiments saying you're the factor of the 5 people you spend the time with the most, right? Ask yourself which 5 people you're spending the most time with on LinkedIn, right? And that's who you are. And what LinkTank does, and LinkTank membership says, is you've got 2 right here in play with me and Mike. We just brought on 2 superstars. That makes 4. Person coming in gets an automatic 5 by including themselves. And the key is, and one of the reasons for LinkTank on Fridays is we're going to do an hour. You can see we try to squeeze this into 20 minutes and we never make it. Luckily, we got there on time today. But the point is, with an hour of dedicated and personalized, I mean, we come to the show knowing there's going to be 1,000 people, so we got to come up with a subject and takeaways that everybody could get some benefit from. If you're one of the first 10, 20, 30, it's going to be focused on the 10, 20, 30 and what they want to hear, what they want to learn, because the only way this is going to grow is it grows beyond me and Mike, right? If me and Mike are the one building it all the time, it's not going to grow that well. But if 30 people get 30 people, right? And all of a sudden, easily, and here's the beauty, LinkedIn gives you so many opportunities to share your story, right? So if you start building something, start doing LinkedIn Lives, start doing newsletters, start doing posts, start commenting, really ratchet up. I mean, everybody, I'll have to say this. When I used to work, I worked. I went into work, I worked. People go to LinkedIn to work, and I spent an hour and a half looking at posts, spent another 30 minutes commenting, 20 minutes connecting, and then I put an hour into doing something. Well, if you give everything credit, you put 3 hours a day in. Who's working full time? Who's got a sense of urgency? And here's the thing, post 5 times in a month, post 5 times in a day. LinkedIn gives you the results no matter what your timetable is, right? And everything I've learned in my life was always about who I was with, not what I was with. Because who I was with created what we ended up with. I've been in great deals with mediocre people, always turned out mediocre. It always settles to that level. And the point is who wants to take the hill? One thing you know about me and Mike, not only are we knowledgeable, we're excitable, right? We're not just sitting here and saying, hey, we'll be here Friday and we'll do an hour and then we'll go home. No, we want winners. Winners make us bigger winners. There is a person who said, if you want to be real successful, spend your time making everybody else successful. And that'll make you successful, right? So to that point, I urge you, on the bottom of the screen is the link to LinkTank membership. You don't have to join. You just could look. You could just share. And, maybe, when you look back on July 1st, 2022, because Mike always talks about the time he was in front of Gary Vee and the light bulb went on. Maybe today is your day. Maybe 6 months or a year from now, you could say, I was just screwing around on LinkedIn one day, caught these 2 guys.
Caught these 2 old timers.
Yeah, piqued my interest. If these guys could do it, anybody could do it. And all of a sudden I'm in. The other thing is we're going to use this program to promote not only ideas, but people. Right? If you come in a group and you've got something to say and something to offer, we're going to bring you on. But another thing, not to throw too much out, is you could have a show just like this, right? There's nothing stopping you. Don't wait for us. And we'd love to follow winners, right? Ratchet up together. So anyways, can't say enough about what we're doing. Can't be more excited about what's to be. And just want you people out there to give yourself a break. You owe it to yourself. Join something that could give you significant return and also change the dynamics of your LinkedIn. Some people are used to being unsuccessful and somehow they make it through, right? Give yourself a choice, make a winner out of yourself. LinkedIn wants you to. They're doing everything they can to get people on the field, and we're trying to help them. So anyways, with that, again, started right. And we got more information than we had anticipated. So if nothing else, it shows our ability to overserve every chance we get. So Mike, it's been great. Two in this week and can't wait for Tuesday. And then next week is the big launch of LinkTank Earning and Learning.
Yes, and happy birthday, America. July 4th. Everyone, at least get out there because there's a lot of vegetarians and eat an apple pie. My favorite.
Well, make this 4th of July your Independence Day. Do something that'll free you up next year, and hopefully it's with us.
I love that, Don.
Yeah, for sure. We figured it out.
Yeah. All right, everyone have a great weekend, a great holiday. Thank you so much. If you love LinkTank, share it with your friends and family and business associates. Send Don and I some messages with some questions. If you want to be on the show. Actually, I dropped the ball. Someone said, anyway, stay with us. Text message us. Tell us you want to be on the show. And then let's get you on. Have an amazing weekend.
Sounds great, Mike. Thanks so much for all you do.